Okay, let's transport ourselves for a moment. Imagine, if you can, the pre-dawn chill in a medieval city. But forget the sort of romanticized versions you sometimes see. Think about the raw reality of it. The air hangs heavy. It's thick with, well, the stench of damp straw, that sour tang of ale. And something else, too, something darker, sort of clinging to the narrow cobbled lanes. You hear things like creaking shutters being thrown open, stalls opening up. It's like the city sighing, reluctantly waking up. Then, as your eyes adjust, you start to see it. Crude wooden tables. And they're laden with, honestly, heaps of fly-blown meat. Barrels of pickled herring already, kind of, furred with mold. Baskets just overflowing with bruised apples, darkening under neglect. And underneath it all, there's this sound. A constant rasping sound, coughing, just everywhere, as regular, as inescapable as the bell you hear tolling for morning mass. Now, these descriptions we've been digging into, they aren't just dry historical facts, not at all. As we've explored these sources, it's become, well, profoundly clear that every single detail, every scent, every sound, every specific visual in these ancient marketplaces is like a powerful brushstroke, painting this vivid picture of a time defined by, frankly, profound adversity. So we're not just talking about what happened. We're really looking at the medieval market itself as a storyteller that reveals the stark realities, the deep-seated fears, and maybe most surprisingly, the incredibly stubborn hopes of an age just grappling with relentless plague. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack that narrative, the story embedded in these seemingly everyday descriptions. We want to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights, to illuminate how these markets functioned, not just as places for buying and selling, obviously, but as both a reflection and a crucible, a testing ground for medieval life during these times of pestilence. Ultimately, this deep dive should shed light on what these ancient marketplaces tell us about, well, fundamental human nature when faced with profound existential adversity.
And that's exactly right. To do that, we're drawing from this collection of incredibly vivid descriptions. They're almost like narrative vignettes, little stories in themselves. They paint a truly immersive picture. And these sources, they focus specifically on medieval markets that were, rife with contagion, places where the struggle for survival was just brutally apparent. They give us this unique, almost terrifying window into a past where, as you said, every single transaction held this greater, often pretty grim, meaning it's not just about what was bought or sold, it's really about the compelling human drama underneath all those exchanges, as setting the scene, the sensory overload of survival.
Okay, so stepping into these medieval markets, through these sources, the first thing that just hits you is the sheer sensory intensity. It's overwhelming. You're not just reading about them. The writers, they actively pull you in. You almost feel it. The damp, the decay, that constant hum of desperation. It's an immediate visceral connection to a really different time. What is this intense focus on the senses? What does that really reveal about the period itself?
That's a really vital point. What's truly insightful, I think, is how these authors use every sense to immerse us. They're creating not just a factual account, but a visceral understanding of the era's lived experience. You feel it. And the sensory onslaught, it reveals what you could call the normalized horror of medieval life back then. The constant stench of decay, that pervasive coughing, the sight of, questionable goods. These weren't exceptions. They were the very fabric of daily existence. And this forced a profound psychological adaptation to suffering that's incredibly hard for us to really grasp today. It just highlights how utterly different their baseline reality was from ours. Sites of desperation and decay.
Yeah, the visuals alone are just incredibly stark. They completely strip away any sort of idyllic notions we might have of bustling, vibrant trade. Right away, the sources confront us with the sheer unappetizing nature of the goods on offer. We read about heaps of fly-blown meat, barrels of pickled herring already furred with mold. I mean, when you think about basic food safety, let alone nutrition, these descriptions are incredibly alarming. This wasn't just poor quality, was it? It speaks to a complete lack of effective preservation.
Absolutely. Those descriptions immediately convey profound scarcity, unbelievably poor conditions. It paints this stark picture of a population under immense pressures, constant pressure. And this extends beyond the food. It goes to the very architecture, the atmosphere of the market itself. The sources talk about cobbled veins of streets, which suggests, not just paths, but almost the strained arteries of a tired, ailing city. You've got wooden awnings and creaking shutters, giving this sense of age and neglect that mirrors the weariness of the people themselves. And then details like soot-stained stone walls, cracked plaster walls, the timber arches, warped shutters, even frost-kissed stones. They all emphasize this unkempt, decaying nature of the setting. This environment isn't just a backdrop, it's a direct reflection of the period's pervasive hardships. The market itself often seems as worn down, as broken as some of the people in it. It underscores this communal struggle etched into the very stones.
Hmm. And some of the most compelling visuals, I think, are the people. The human and animal spectacles. We see ragged beggars hovering near the market gates, an immediate, really poignant sign of widespread poverty, the societal fallout from relentless illness. Then there's that unsettling image, the scab hands of fishmongers, a tiny detail, but it speaks volumes about unsanitary conditions, constant exposure, and then the truly heartbreaking sight of a leper selling his last candle. Just wow. A testament to extreme destitution, but also that sheer tenacity, right? The will to survive against impossible odds. And alongside them, you have these almost ritualistic figures. The pale-faced friar threading through the throng, an iconic plague doctor with his beaked mask hiding weary eyes, figures representing, I suppose, both spiritual comfort and attempted science, often futile in the face of this unknown thing.
Right, a mix of hope and maybe helplessness.
The sources even give us this vulnerable child, tracing a cross into ash, just praying for survival. And nature itself seems like a grim observer. Ravens circle lazily, hinting at the grim harvest to come, while a rat scurries beneath burlap sacks leaking grain, a chilling, ever-present reminder of the vectors of disease lurking everywhere. These aren't just static images. They feel like characters in this grim play, each adding another layer to our understanding of the daily struggle.
They really do paint a grim picture of daily life and death. It's a vivid tapestry of constant exposure, pervasive vulnerability. And to truly grasp the brutal nature of commerce and survival then, we have to zoom in on some specific, unsettling visual details. They're tools and trophies, as the sources sometimes imply. They mention a butcher's block darkened by dried blood, a permanent stain suggesting a relentless, messy trade, life and death intimately tied to daily food. The blade, nicked and stained, yet still gleaming with this disturbing mix of promise and peril, a tool of necessity, but also potential violence. And perhaps most disturbingly, we read about bloodied pliers beside yellow teeth, trophies of desperate barter.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's not just about crude dentistry. It implies a literal exchange of pain, of extraction. A piece of a person's body may be bartered for basic needs. These aren't just items, they're unsettling visual metaphors for the harsh realities, where the lines between life and death, commerce and bare survival were just terrifyingly blurred. It really underscores how every item, every single transaction, held a far greater, often quite morbid significance back then. Sounds of suffering and commerce.
Yeah, beyond the visuals, the sounds of these markets offer another really chilling dimension. Our sources paint this picture of a constant chorus of illness, something you just couldn't escape. Their coughing is constant as the bell that tolls for morning mass. Imagine that. Just this pervasive hacking and rasping, always there, a grim counterpoint to daily life. Even the attempts to mitigate it are audible. Coughs rasp from shadowed corners, muffled by kerchiefs steeped in vinegar. It creates this unshakable auditory backdrop of illness, a constant sickening hum that really underscores how pervasive disease was.
This soundscape immediately tells the story of a population under siege from within their own bodies, a reality that must have permeated every single interaction.
And that bell you mentioned, it resonated with this profound dual toll, both symbolic and literal. The bell that tolls for morning mass grounds daily life in ritual, a reminder of structure amidst the growing chaos. But then almost immediately, church bells toll for the dead, their heavy chimes shaking dust from ancient beams. A mournful, unavoidable announcement of constant loss, just relentless.
Our sources really emphasize this, with a cracked bell tolling the hour, its mournful voice reminding all of the graves freshly dug. These bells weren't just timekeepers. They narrated the relentless march of death, providing this somber, inescapable rhythm against the frantic pace of the market. They signify both the passage of time and the ever-present reality of mortality, shaping the very consciousness of everyone who heard them.
And amidst the solemn chimes and the persistent coughing, there was also the distinct market clamor and unsettling noises, the cries of crows and rooks gathering on crooked chimneys, their cawing harsh as accusations. It adds this layer of natural predatory sound to the human suffering below.
Almost like commentary.
Yeah, and you hear the chilling scrape of bone on wood, that detail from the butcher's stall hinting at constant dissection. The brittle wind cuts through the narrow lanes, rattling wooden signs, adding to the sense of an exposed, vulnerable environment, as if the very air was hostile. The cries of hawkers echo the familiar sounds of commerce, but here, the sources explicitly tell us the clamor of trade hides quiet tragedies. And then, almost paradoxically, the clink of coin on wood sounds almost holy.
Wow.
That contrast is so striking, the mundane sounds of buying and selling set against this backdrop of pervasive dread, giving the act of commerce this desperate, almost sacred significance in the fight for sheer survival. It truly illustrates how life's necessities were pursued amidst constant underlying horror.
That cacophony really serves as a complex auditory tapestry. It's layered. And perhaps the most heartbreaking sounds are often the specific human voices of grief and warning. The sources powerfully describe the town crier, voice hoarse from grief announcing the night's dead. His words echo off stone facades, each name a chisel against the heart of those who listen.
Oh, that's powerful phrasing.
Isn't it? This isn't just news. It's a profound public ritual of shared sorrow. Each name a hammer blow against the collective spirit. This single, grief-stricken voice vividly conveys the unimaginable loss, making it personal and immediate for everyone there. It's a sonic signature of the era's profound anguish. A constant reminder that for every transaction aimed at survival, there was this solemn transaction with death happening all around. It reveals just how deeply intertwined public life was with private sorrow. See smells of decay and desperation.
Okay, so if the sights and sounds weren't enough to convey the grim reality, the sources truly immerse you in the smells. A visceral assault of decay and desperation that was, by all accounts, just overpowering, inescapable.
The sources describe an air thick with the stench of damp straw and sour ale. This isn't just a quaint historical detail, it's a direct assault on the senses. It instantly conveys the utterly unsanitary conditions that were just the norm. Add to that the scent of boiled cabbage mingling with the iron tang of dried blood, a grim mix that speaks of meager food and the ever-present violence of the butcher's trade.
The sour musk of wet wool and sweat, that pervasive human odor of a population that couldn't easily wash themselves or their clothes, and barrels of offal just deepen the picture of decay and filth everywhere. These aren't pleasant aromas. They're a direct, unvarnished portrayal of the squalor, the raw, unbuffered reality of medieval life. It forces us to confront how accustomed people must have become to living amidst such foulness.
Precisely. These pervasive scents are a visceral illustration of the unsanitary conditions that were a literal breeding ground for disease. And fascinatingly, within this dominant narrative of decay, you get these fleeting whiffs of hope, or perhaps deception.
Ah, okay. Like what?
Well, you can almost smell the acrid smoke of burned herbs meant to purify what prayer cannot. A desperate, often pretty ineffective attempt to cleanse the air and ward off the pestilence. Yet amidst this, there are the sweet honey cakes offered by hopeful bakers. A small, almost defiant scent of something palatable, something offering momentary comfort, maybe. A tiny break from the grimness.
A small pleasure.
A very small pleasure. And then, the fleeting whiffs of rosemary burned by a healer who swears it can cleanse the pestilence. A scent that promises a cure, a momentary reprieve from the overwhelming putrefaction. These contrasting smells paint this poignant picture of constant struggle, the grim reality of decay battling against human ingenuity, desperate attempts to find solace, or just that all-too-human desire for a quick fix. What's truly insightful, connecting this back, is how these sensory details reveal that normalized horror of medieval life. The constant stench wasn't an anomaly, it was the air they breathed. It forced this profound psychological adaptation to suffering that's hard for us to grasp. They don't just describe a market. These smells embody an era. 2.
Right, yeah.
Commerce of contagion, the unholy bargains.
But the deeper story of these markets really emerges when we look at the commerce itself, the buying and selling. Because here, survival isn't just about trade in the normal sense, it's bartered. Often, as the sources suggest, with death as this unseen currency.
The stakes are impossibly high.
Exactly. It's a place where every transaction carries this implied, terrifying risk, a dark drama playing out with every single exchange. Goods and their grim reality.
Indeed. The goods and their grim reality are absolutely central to this deep dive. Our sources consistently describe rotting goods. They specifically mention pickled herring already furred with mold, which is a clear indicator not only of poor preservation, but also the desperate lack of alternatives. People were forced to accept such compromised food.
Had no choice.
Pretty much. And beyond food, we encounter specialized, often disturbing wares. Jars of leeches kept for bleeding the fevered, a common but often ineffective, sometimes harmful medical practice, and sacks of meal crawling with weevils, which plainly shows the low quality and the desperate, unavoidable consumption. You ate it anyway.
Right. What else could you do?
Exactly. Even staples like smoked eels stiff with salt or worm-eaten cloth to mourners who cannot afford better paint this picture of compromised products that people were simply forced to accept. These items convey a stark reality of compromised health and a constant battle against hunger and illness with utterly inadequate resources. It highlights a supply chain where quality was a luxury, absolutely not a given.
And the promises these goods offered,
Yeah,
often they were just that, right? False promises.
very often.
You had tinctures promising relief from boils, concoctions that likely did very little good but offered that crucial shred of psychological hope. People needed to believe something might work.
Desperation fuels hope.
Absolutely. More chilling are the glass vials of quicksilver mercury. Their cloudy contents a desperate promise to soothe festering wounds. We now know how incredibly toxic mercury is, but back then it was a desperate gamble against an unknown disease.
A terrible choice.
And jars of pungent salves, whose recipe is whispered to ward off the rot, speak to this blend of traditional knowledge, superstition, and sheer desperation that permeated the medical landscape.
These items aren't just commodities, they're poignant symbols of human vulnerability, illustrating a population clinging to any possibility, no matter how dubious, facing this unseen, deadly enemy. They reveal how hope itself could be exploited, too, by the desperate and maybe by the unscrupulous. And what's truly poignant is how everyday necessities became luxuries, infused with profound risk. A simple loaf of rye bread already speckled with mold wasn't just a meal, it was a gamble, a potential carrier of further illness.
You're taking a chance at every bite.
Every single bite. Similarly, a handful of dried juniper berries meant to sweeten foul water underscores the fundamental struggle for something as basic as clean water, now elevated to a potentially life-saving luxury. The sources portray the very act of buying sustenance as a gamble. Every sip, every mouthful carried the potential for more sickness. This detail isn't just about medieval economics, it's a powerful illustration of the fragility of life, the constant underlying threat embedded in the most basic fundamental acts of survival. It reveals how even the most basic human needs were tainted by the shadow of death. B, the price of survival. Coin, absolution, and shrouds.
And the price of survival itself. That tells such a profound human story. The currency of desperation wasn't just gold or silver coins, was it?
Not at all. Much broader.
The sources describe how coins passed like whispers tarnished silver exchanged for rotting goods. A silent, almost furtive transaction for questionable food. But it goes deeper. Prayer beads swapped for tinctures illuminates this unsettling exchange.
Yeah.
Spiritual comfort traded for physical relief, however ineffective it might have been.
A fascinating intersection.
Yeah. And we see the ultimate act of destitution. A leper selling his last candle for a mouthful of rancid cheese. A heart-wrenching image, trading light, dignity maybe, for a mere scrap of food.
Devastating.
And in a chilling premonition, an old woman haggles over shrouds for corpses not yet cold, preparing for the inevitable. These aren't just market interactions, they are snapshots of a society stripped bare, where every form of value, spiritual or material, could be exchanged for just a fleeting, uncertain chance at another day.
And in this theater of necessity, the sources show how coin becomes absolution, buying another day against unseen foes.
Absolution. That's a strong word.
It is. This isn't just about economic exchange. It's a profound insight into the symbolic weight of money during this time. It suggests that in a world where God's wrath seemed to manifest as plague, the simple act of acquiring enough to survive, even for 24 more hours, felt like a divine reprieve, a temporary pardon from death.
Wow.
What's truly compelling here is how a transactional act, usually mundane, gets imbued with such profound spiritual and existential meaning. And this raises an important question for us, thinking about understanding history. If knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied, then understanding these transactions offers a powerful lens, a lens into the economic, social, and emotional landscape of the era. It's not just about what they bought, but what they sacrificed, and what those sacrifices meant in the broader context of their short, precarious lives.
And those sacrifices were deeply, painfully personal. The sources give us specific, poignant examples of personal sacrifice that really humanize this grim era. A widow trades her wedding band for a flask of bitter tonic, an act that just screams profound loss, exchanging a symbol of love, of commitment, for a desperate, likely futile attempt at survival.
Or heartbreaking.
We also see a merchant selling worm-eaten cloth to mourners who cannot afford better, highlighting the stark realities of supply and demand, even in death, where the poor couldn't even afford proper burial cloths.
Exploiting grief, in a way.
Or just the grim reality of the market. And the stark image of a widow pawning her last ring paints a picture of ultimate destitution, stripping away the last vestiges of comfort, personal history for just a fleeting chance at life. These aren't just economic anecdotes. They are deeply moving moments of human anguish. The extreme lengths people would go to survive, or to help a loved one in a world offering precious few other choices. See profiteers of pestilence.
And within this stark landscape of desperate commerce, certain figures emerge who kind of embody the grim realities. Those who inadvertently or sometimes intentionally became the profiteers of pestilence. The most chilling is probably the gravedigger's grim business.
Yeah, his presence looms large.
It really does. The sources describe him sharpening his rusted spade, a mundane act made sinister by its context. His cart, empty for now, but destined to return heavy before dusk, is this stark, almost poetic reminder of the relentless churn of death.
A constant visual reminder.
Exactly, and sometimes he simply waits silently at the edge of the stalls. His very presence, a constant, unsettling reminder of the market's underlying purpose, not just a place of life, but of rapid, relentless death. His existence is this chilling backdrop, a shadow of what awaited so many in that market.
Then you have the healers and quacks.
Yeah.
A necessary, I suppose, but often unreliable part of the market ecosystem.
Definitely a mixed bag.
The sources introduce an apothecary in a moth-eaten robe offering glass vials of quicksilver. A figure promising relief with dangerous, ineffective remedies that sometimes probably did more harm than good.
Right. Risk upon risk.
We also meet a leech seller, robe stained with dried blood, hawking vials said to draw poison from boils and wounds, highlighting the crude, often harmful medical practices of the time, leeches and bloodletting.
Standard practice then, however misguided.
And in a truly gruesome detail, a tooth puller displays bloodied pliers beside yellow teeth, trophies of desperate barter.
Ugh.
These individuals represent this whole spectrum of hope and exploitation. Their services embodying the profound desperation of the sick and the alarmingly limited, often dangerous medical knowledge available.
Their presence paints a picture of a population desperately seeking cures, and a subset of society willing, perhaps, to capitalize on that desperation. And of course, the spiritual intermediaries played a crucial role in this environment of pervasive fear and death. You can't ignore them.
Right, the church's presence.
Exactly. We see a monk, face half covered by a frayed cowl, murmuring blessings in Latin as he collects coins for indulgences, essentially selling forgiveness or reduced time in purgatory.
A controversial practice even then.
Absolutely. It highlights the startling commercialization of salvation, where spiritual comfort could literally be bought, preying on the deepest anxieties of the populace. Similarly, a pale-faced friar threads through the throng, scattering blessings in exchange for alms. Their presence underscores that grim intersection of commerce and spiritual anxiety, offering a different kind of commodity. Absolution? Spiritual solace in a world consumed by physical suffering. These figures, whether they were exploiting people or genuinely trying to minister, were an integral part of the market's bleak landscape, embodying the lengths people went to for both physical and spiritual survival. 3. The shadow of death, ever present and personal.
It's just impossible to talk about these markets without talking about death. It's unavoidable. It's not some abstract concept. It feels like a very real, very tangible character in every single scene. An omnipresent force shaping every interaction, every whispered prayer, every hurried purchase.
It permeates everything.
Our sources make this abundantly clear, revealing how death wasn't just an event, it was a constant ambient presence, the background noise of life. Ominous signs and symbols.
The ominous signs and symbols of death are woven throughout the fabric of these markets, like a dark thread running through everything. We come back to the tolling bells. That constant chime serving as a profound, double-edged reminder. As our sources describe, the bell that tolls for morning mass marks both the start of the day and, implicitly, the day's potential casualties.
A grim countdown.
In a way, yes. Then, the heavy chimes shaking dust from ancient beams as the bells toll specifically for the dead. A deep, resonating sound you couldn't ignore. And from the cathedral's tower, a cracked bell tolls the hour, its mournful voice reminding all of the graves freshly dug. Unquote. These sounds are not mere background noise. They are a constant auditory testament to loss, a chilling soundtrack to daily life that imbued every moment with the weight of mortality.
And the visual reminders are equally stark, leaving absolutely no room for denial. Carts creak under sacks of lime and burlap-wrapped bodies. This isn't a detail to gloss over. It's a stark, horrifying image. The sheer volume of the dead, the desperate impersonal measures taken to dispose of them.
The logistics of death.
Exactly. These carts are the silent, grim protagonists of this macabre procession weaving through the market. Their presence a chilling, undeniable truth of what the plague was doing.
They literally transport the evidence of death through the very heart of the city, making it an unavoidable spectacle for everyone. And nature itself often acts as this grim, almost knowing witness, contributing to these ominous signs. The cries of crows, rooks gathering on crooked chimneys, their cawing harsh as accusations, and particularly ravens circling lazily, waiting for the day spoiled bodies too poor for coffins.
Ugh. Circling. Waiting.
Yeah, these aren't just birds, they are harbingers. Natural scavengers representing a living, circling testament to the market's true, underlying purpose, a place where life and death intersect daily and where death often claimed the final, brutal victory. The sheer density of death's symbols in these markets powerfully illustrates that it wasn't just an occasional event. It was the ambient noise of life. It shaped every interaction, every transaction, every thought, becoming the dominant, inescapable reality of the era. B. Personal encounters with fear and grief.
And the impact of death isn't just external or symbolic in these sources. It's deeply, agonizingly personal. They prick us face to face with these vivid moments of parental desperation. We see a mother praying over her fevered child. A universal image of love and terror, isn't it? A desperate plea for a miracle.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
And then the more active, desperate act. A mother clasps her child's hand, guiding him past peddlers. A protective gesture against this unseen, omnipresent threat that could strike anyone, anytime.
Trying to shield them?
Yeah. These small, intimate scenes reveal this powerful story of parents trying, often futilely, to shield their most vulnerable. A heartbreaking illustration of love battling against overwhelming odds.
And the children's vulnerability is just starkly highlighted in these accounts. It's brutal. In a forgotten corner, a child traces a cross into ash, praying not to be among tomorrow's burials.
That image stays with you.
It really does. This tiny, desperate act of faith and profound fear, revealing an innocence confronting a horrifying reality far too soon, and the whispers that spread through the market confirm the relentless, grim truth. Another child dead, a new fever sweeping the river quarter. These details provide this intimate, tragic glimpse into innocence lost. The relentless march of the disease claiming the youngest, leaving this indelible mark on families and communities. It drives home the real human cost.
The public announcements, too, they personalize this pervasive grief, made it impossible to ignore. The town crier, voice hoarse from grief, announces the night's dead. His words echo off stone facades, each name a chisel against the heart of those who listen.
That phrasing again, a chisel against the heart. So evocative.
It really is. This isn't just a record being read out, it's a public eulogy. A shared moment of agony where the collective mourning becomes this loud, painful outpouring.
Each name spoken signifies a life lost, a family broken, a community diminished, illustrating the profound communal impact of such widespread death. And all of this contributed to the overarching, pervasive sense of general anxiety that just permeated the market. You can feel it in the descriptions.
Like a constant hum of fear.
Exactly. The sources speak of whispers spreading, another child dead, a new fever sweeping the river quarter, this constant buzz of fear and dread, a grim rumor mill fueling uncertainty. There's also the looming, chilling, creeping certainty that winter will claim more than coin can ever ransom.
Oof, that sense of inevitability.
Yes. This isn't just about the immediate danger, it's about a deep, pervasive sense of helplessness and foreboding that infected daily life. The market, in this context, truly becomes a stage for collective anxiety, a place where fear is traded almost as much as goods, a constant backdrop of looming tragedy that colored every single interaction. C. The plague doctor's haunting presence.
And finally, in this section, we can't ignore the iconic figure of the plague doctor's haunting presence.
The beak mask. Instantly recognizable.
Exactly. The sources vividly describe this figure with his beak mask hiding weary eyes, a truly unsettling image that has resonated through history for centuries. The rustle of herbs in his leather satchel adds this specific auditory detail to his unsettling presence, a sound that, rather than comforting, probably instilled even more fear in people.
Representing the unknown, the disease itself, maybe?
Yeah. This figure is a constant, unsettling reminder of the ever-present shadow of disease, a walking symbol of the medical struggle against the unknown, embodying both the desperation of the time and the crude, often ineffective attempts to combat it. He's not just a doctor. He's this potent symbol of the era's desperate fight against an unseen, terrifying enemy.
And this brings us to a really crucial insight, pulling it together. The sheer density of death's symbols in these markets powerfully demonstrates that it wasn't just an event. It was, as we said, the ambient noise of life. It shaped every interaction, every transaction, every breath. It became the dominant reality. The plague doctor, in particular, is this living, breathing testament to both the scientific limitations of the time and the human effort, however crude, to combat the overwhelming tide of disease.
The symbol of defiance, maybe, as well as fear.
Perhaps. His presence underscores that death wasn't just a possibility. It was an active participant in every moment of market life, influencing decisions, driving desperation, and ultimately defining the boundaries of their existence. It's a window into how an entire society fundamentally had to recalibrate its definition of living. 4. Glimmers of hope, stubborn defiance and despair.
But despite all this overwhelming grimness, all the decay and death, what's truly remarkable, I think, is that these sources also tell another story, an equally profound aspect of the story, and that's one of incredible stubborn hope.
Yes, it's there, woven in.
It's not grand, heroic hope in the way we might think of it, but small, daily acts of defiance, tiny sparks in the overwhelming darkness. This is what the enduring human spirit really seems to shine through in these ancient accounts. Amulets, blessings, and prayer.
Indeed. The market sources reveal this powerful testament to people seeking spiritual protection. Everywhere you look, we read about individuals clutching an amulet said to ward off the Black Death, a tangible manifestation of their desperate faith and that very human need for agency, for doing something in the face of the uncontrollable.
Trying to take back some control.
Exactly. Prayer beads swapped for tinctures shows that poignant exchange again. Spiritual tools traded for earthly remedies, however ineffective, highlighting the blurred lines between belief and practical survival, the widespread presence of talismans against unseen terror, things like splinters of bone, tarnished crosses, crude iron charms, and peddlers hawking charms of bone and twisted iron said to hold death at bay. These are all miniature illustrations of human attempts to exert some semblance of control over the uncontrollable.
Little acts of magic, almost.
Or faith, or both. These items embody a fierce, if often superstitious, will to survive, revealing a deep-seated reliance on both the sacred and the supernatural to try and ward off this invisible enemy.
And alongside these tangible objects, there were constant religious rituals that underscored a profound spiritual reliance. A mother prays over her favored child. That deeply personal, universal act of faith and desperate love. You see it across cultures, across time. A primal plea.
The priest's blessing, drifting over spoiled wine, suggests this desperate attempt to sanctify, to purify, even the most tainted goods, trying to infuse hope and divine intervention into the mundane, the everyday.
Trying to make it safe.
We also see a monk, murmuring blessings in Latin while collecting coins, reinforcing the central role of the church in offering spiritual comfort, even if that comfort was, well, often monetized.
The complex role.
Yeah. The image of a child tracing a cross into ash, praying not to be among tomorrow's burials, is incredibly moving. A small, quiet act of profound hope and fear that just humanizes the vast statistics of death.
Brings it down to the individual. And then more communal acts. A whispered prayer at the shrine beside the market gate. A bent-backed woman scattering grain to ward off rats, her lips moving in silent prayer to saints forgotten by time. Even a priest blessing salt to keep away the miasma, the supposed bad air causing the disease.
Trying anything.
Exactly. These myriad acts of prayer and ritual paint this compelling picture of an era deeply steeped in faith. Clinging to spiritual solace as a primary, perhaps the last, defense against an incomprehensible enemy.
They highlight just how deeply embedded belief systems were in the daily struggle for survival. B, the persistence of life and commerce. And what's truly remarkable, despite the relentless despair, is how the accounts consistently emphasize that the market endures. It keeps going.
It doesn't just shut down.
No, it's described as an unholy communion of need, fear, and the relentless hope. A paradox that perfectly captures the essence of survival in such grim times. The market isn't just a place, it's presented almost as a living entity, described as a living wound, festering yet refusing to close.
Wow, that's powerful imagery.
Isn't it? It speaks volumes about incredible societal resilience. Despite everything, the market swells with voices both hopeful and hollow, and it is repeatedly reborn, a grim congregation where death is traded, yet life, stubborn as lichen on stone, refuses to yield. this repeated phrasing, and still the market breathes on stubborn, sorrowed alive. That's the ultimate testament to human tenacity, a refusal to succumb entirely to overwhelming forces. It reviews this deep, almost biological impulse to persist against all odds.
And within that enduring market, daily acts of necessity continued, almost defiantly, a quiet testament to life's stubborn persistence. Still, trade continues.
It's such a simple statement, but profoundly powerful in this
It
context.
really is.
A midwife barters for fresh linen, hands raw from boiling rags and lye, that harsh cleaning substance, illustrating the continuous arrival of new life, even amidst overwhelming death, and the relentless, physically demanding work involved in trying to preserve it.
Life continues. Births continue.
Yeah. A tinker, his beard matted with soot, offers rusted hinges and dented pots to those with too little coin to refuse. Making do, mending things.
Exactly. These aren't grand gestures or heroic acts. They are the mundane, essential acts of life carrying on. The quiet, persistent story of people simply doing what needed to be done to get by.
They form the backbone of the market's powerful message of persistence, that unyielding human drive to just survive, see small acts of defiance and shared humanity. And amidst the pervasive gloom, the sources also capture these incredibly poignant, small acts of defiance and shared humanity, little moments.
Okay.
One particularly striking detail is a rosewater vial tucked into a beggar's palm. This isn't a transaction, it's an act of pure, unsolicited compassion, a momentary break in the harshness that suggests enduring human connection, even when self-preservation must have been absolutely paramount. It reveals that empathy, however rare or small it might have been, still existed. A tiny flicker of light in the overwhelming darkness.
And the overarching current that runs through all these descriptions, the powerful undercurrent, is that relentless drive to survive.
It's fundamental.
The sources repeatedly show people continuing to bargain hope against hunger. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It feels like a description of every single interaction, every choice, every day, reflecting an elemental human impulse. It encapsulates that indomitable human spirit that, even when faced with insurmountable odds, chooses to fight for another day, to seek out any glimmer of light. The beautiful, almost poetic line, "Hope itself, like bruised fruit, is passed from hand to trembling hand, never quite fresh, never quite gone," paints this picture of resilient hope. Maybe imperfect, battered, but never completely extinguished.
Still being shared.
Yeah, it's a pragmatic, persistent commitment to life, even in the face of what must have seemed like certain doom.
And what's truly fascinating here, bringing it together, is how these small acts of hope and the market's sheer refusal to close, despite being a living wound, reveal the incredible tenacity of the human spirit. It's a profound demonstration of pragmatic, everyday resilience. These aren't epic battles in the traditional sense. They are the quiet, daily triumphs of enduring, of continuing to seek connection, and of finding small ways to defy the overwhelming forces of disease and despair.
The little victories.
Exactly. The market isn't just a place for selling goods. It's a place where hope itself is cultivated, traded, demonstrated, serving as this powerful testament to the enduring human spirit. The market as storyteller. What these scenes reveal.
So as we bring all these vivid details together now,
Mm-hmm.
what does this all truly mean? What's the takeaway? Beyond the sights and sounds, the purchases, the prayers, what deeper understanding of the human condition are these medieval markets really imparting to us? It feels like they're narrating the very essence of human struggle and survival across time. The narrative of necessity and adaptation.
They absolutely are. The primary plot revealed by these markets, the underlying narrative of necessity and adaptation, is fundamentally about immediate survival. That's the core story. It's a story that drives people to exchange anything for a chance at another day. Even when, as the sources grimly note, the price of every bargain is measured in risk and sorrow.
That's the bottom line.
That's the core truth. A relentless, desperate scramble to simply exist, where every decision is weighed against the immediate threat of death or starvation.
And hand in hand with that necessity is this remarkable ingenuity and desperation. You really see it. People find ways.
The market scenes illustrate how communities adapted to extreme conditions, finding ways to trade, to create, to maintain some semblance of order amidst overwhelming chaos. Even if it meant selling rotten goods or buying worm-eaten cloth, people found pragmatic ways to make do with what little was available.
Resourcefulness under pressure.
Exactly. This isn't just about suffering. It's a profound illustration of incredible human resourcefulness, of bending rather than breaking under unimaginable pressure. It's a powerful testament to how life finds a way, even in the most unpromising and dire circumstances. the unspoken story of community and connection, or lack thereof. It's also a compelling, though complex, glimpse into community and connection, or maybe the limits of it.
Right, it's not all positive connection.
No, not at all. While filled with individual fear and personal struggles, the market undeniably served as a gathering place. A grim congregation, as one source puts it, where people, despite their desperation, came together. There was an unholy communion of need, fear, binding them in a shared experience, whether they liked it or not. This reveals a paradoxical reality. A place primarily of individual transactions that simultaneously foster this reluctant, perhaps even unconscious, shared space. Where people, for better or worse, face their common fate together, the very act of gathering, even in the face of contagion, underscores a fundamental human need for connection, for presence.
And that shared space, even if it was fraught with peril, led to this powerful experience of shared vulnerability, didn't it?
Absolutely. The common threats, plague, famine, created this deeply resonant shared experience, silently binding people together in their suffering, the whispers of another child dead, the public announcements of the night's casualties. These weren't just facts flying around. They were shared burdens that, despite the overwhelming fear, fostered a profound form of collective consciousness.
A grim solidarity.
Perhaps. The market, then, is a vivid illustration of profound, albeit often unspoken, empathy between those who walked its tainted grounds, demonstrating a silent understanding of their collective plight. See the enduring story of resilience. And ultimately, perhaps the most powerful understanding these markets convey is the enduring story of resilience, that refusal to give up.
Yeah, that really comes through strongly.
The repeated descriptions of the market, breathing on, enduring, refusing to close or yield, underscore a profound human tenacity. Even when death itself has become a currency, as the sources so powerfully put it, life stubbornly continues. This constant return, this daily reopening, despite the horrors, is a testament to the unyielding will to persist against impossible odds. It reminds us that human survival isn't just about physical endurance. It's a deeply ingrained psychological and communal drive to continue.
And that recurring motif of the cycle of dawn further emphasizes this profound resilience. It's a subtle but constant theme.
The new day.
As dawn gives way to a bleak gray sky, the market breathes on. And as dawn edges into pale daylight, the market swells once more. This isn't just describing the time passing. It's a powerful illustration of continuous struggle, survival, and a renewed, if grim, hope each and every day.
A chance to try again.
Exactly. The rising sun, even over such a tragic scene, signifies new beginnings. A fresh chance, no matter how small, to defy the overwhelming darkness that surrounds them. It's a timeless symbol of humanity's persistent refusal to surrender. D, the market as a microcosm of an era.
And this brings us to the understanding that these market scenes aren't just isolated anecdotes. They function as a concentrated reflection, a true microcosm of the broader medieval experience during the Black Death.
Everything compressed into one place.
Pretty much. They vividly illuminate the complex blend of deep piety and ingrained superstition, the desperation and the relentless enterprise, and most fundamentally, that constant precarious dance between rampant death and tenacious life. It's a distilled version of an entire historical period played out on this smaller, more intimate stage, which makes a distant past feel incredibly immediate and relatable, I think.
It really does.
And this raises that important question again. If we truly understand these markets as powerful storytellers, they become less about a distant alien past and more about the fundamental, timeless human experience. They narrate the profound interplay between fear, hope, and sheer will to survive, regardless of the century. They show that the human spirit, when pushed to its absolute limits, still finds ways to adapt, to connect, and crucially, to persist, echoing through the ages. Outro.
And so, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clearer than ever, isn't it? These medieval markets are far more than just historical footnotes or simple places of transaction.
Much, much more.
Our journey through these vivid sources has revealed them as profound storytellers, weaving this compelling narrative of a world grappling with immense challenges, balancing grim realities with incredible, enduring hope. Every visual, every sound, every painful or hopeful transaction, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, it all contributes to this larger, incredibly human tale. A testament to what it means to simply endure. So, as you reflect on these medieval markets, maybe consider this. What profound stories are our own modern-day markets, literal or metaphorical, telling about us right now? What unseen currencies are we trading in our contemporary challenges? And what does that reveal about our values, our priorities? And how do we find and foster our own stubborn hope amidst the complexities and uncertainties of today? Something to think about.